Tartaria and the relation with King Arthur. The fraud called King Arthur as a pseudonym of the empire, made by the best chronologist in the world alive. In Figueres 18.1, we see an old miniature entitled King Arthur Fights the Giant, 155, pages 64-65. Above the giant's head we see the name Gulgas. As we will demonstrate in other publications, Arthur's battle with the giant mirrors the biblical battle between David and Goliath, or the battle between Dmitry Donskoy and Mamai Khan in 1380. What actual events might Galfidus be describing in this poetic form of his? 1. The victory of the Britons, brothers or crusaders, who succeeded in conquering Byzantium. 2. The fight against Gemagog, one of the most dangerous adversaries. Who is Gomagog? We mentioned him briefly in the first part. Let us now expound the form more broadly. The book of Revelation also speaks of the armies of Gog and Magog with fear. Satan shall be released from his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. Revelation 27. According to the modern commentator, popular tradition eventually transformed Gog and Magog into malicious giants. Statues of Gog and Magog have been in London since the Middle Ages, near the entrance to the city, next to the modern City Hall, 155, page 232. 155, page 232. These two medieval nations are quite famous. According to various chroniclers, they can be identified as the Goths and the Mongols. In the 13th century, the Hungarians identified Gog and Magog as the Tartars, 517, page 174. This fact is enough to realize that the events described by Galfidus took place in Byzantium and Russia. Horde. The famous King Arthur as a legendary reflection of the horde that had invaded the British Isles in the 14th, 16th century. Some readers may be unaware of the fact that the legendary English King Arthur, considered one of the greatest rulers of ancient England and whose life is dated to about the 5th century AD's Cuvier in 564, page 835, had maintained relations with the Russian Tsar. One of King Arthur's companions refers to the King of Russia, the most austere of knights. This fact is related by Liamon, the author of the cycle of poems entitled Brutus or a Chronicle of Britain, 1239. His life is dated to the beginning of the supposed 13th century. See also 517, pages 247-248. It is believed that a Russian princess or queen was stolen from Russia and taken to Britain under the command of King Arthur, 517, page 248. In figure 1837, we reproduce a drawn copy of the cross on the tomb attributed to King Arthur today, 55, pages 64-65. The handwriting on it is of great interest to us. It can be interpreted as Latin, here lies, etc. On the other hand, the first word can be read as the Greek word Nikia, see figure 1837. Nikia or Niki, in other words, which translates from Greek as conqueror. In addition, the rendering of Arthur's name is very interesting. We see it transcribed as Rex Arturius, Rex Horde Rus, i.e. the king of the Russian horde. Of the Russian horde. If the letterer had wanted to transcribe the name in one word, he could easily have done so, since there is plenty of space in figure 1837. However, if the two words were to be separated by some sign, the space available would not have been enough, so we see the word Rios written below R2. Later, the king's name was transformed into Arturus, which is also a combination of horde and Rus. But less obviously, this seems to have happened in the 18th century, with the aim of making the Russian horde origins of the tide more vague. It should also be noted that in Old English texts, the name Arthur had been transcribed as Arda, 509, page 247. This makes it sound even closer to the word horde, order or Arda. Thus, what we learn from ancient sources is that the legendary English King Arthur had actually been a Tsar of the Russian horde. we are faced with another trace of the Russian, or Mongol, conquest of the 14th-15th century, whose ripples had also reached the British Isles. Legends about the Knights of the Round Table are very famous. 564, pages 135 and 573. The knights are supposed to have formed a kind of state council presided over by King Arthur and to have taken care of the affairs of the state. We begin to realise that this English legend must have an echo of the Horde Council, also known as the Cossack Circle, hence the round shape of the English council table. In Ukrainian, the state council is still called Rada or Horde.